Hello and welcome to No Huddle Necessary. Of course, I'm your host Jeff Barnes here on the show where our nuts and bolts sports writers make the argument on the topics. Okay, and we have three fresh faces this week. Well, two and a half if you want to count Keith Richards, who's returning from the first episode in a late minute cancellation. So let's start it off by me introducing you to our first panelist. You can call her basically the first lady of nuts and bolts sports, and she is constantly on our media. Ashmere Prasad.
Hey.
All right. All right. You've seen him a lot for the Redskins and the NFC East. Well, they formerly Washington Redskins. That's going to take a lot of me getting used to saying formerly Washington Redskins. Ryan Cooley is in the house.
What's up, guys? How you guys doing?
All right. And, of course, once again, the man with the most famous name on the Nuts and Bolts staff, Keith Richards, is in the house.
Yeah, I don't know how Thomas got called into work. I don't know how that happened. That's a real shame.
Well, it gives you a chance to get a little bit of revenge for last week, you know?
We'll see. I hope so.
All right. Well, once again, you guys are going to make the argument. Unlike last week, we're going to start it off. Everybody's going to have 4 minutes to make their point. You don't have to use the whole 4 minutes, but you have 4 minutes. So if you go over, trust me, we'll be ready for you. All right, you'll know. All right. So we're going to start it off with a nice hard-hitting question to come right out the bat. All right. So right out the gates. All right. Antonio Brown. Okay. Antonio Brown is going to be our first quarter question. All right. Antonio Brown has this love-hate relationship with football. 1 minute he loves it. 1 minute he hates it. He's retiring. He's talking retirement again. Right. Although he's been working out with a lot of people trying to get interest. All right. If you were an NFL GM, all right, would you, in talking about you being the GM, wearing the GM hat, would you sign him? We're going to start this off with Ashmere, not because we're going to do the chivalrous route, but because A is first in the alphabet.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Coming from a team that he recently left in the dust, the fan base here, I was so hyped when the Raiders had signed him. I was thinking Carr finally had a weapon he could use on the receiving end. I was all about it. And then I attended the game right after he had quit, and everyone's saying, boo Antonio Brown, and it was wild. I think there were more like burning Antonio Brown jerseys and celebrating the win. So I would not, because I think the unknowing of his personalities just makes it it's unsure for your team, and it sucks because he's a very strong receiver. I think he has so much to give to any quarterback that he would be able to join, even Derek Carr, and that's me low-key not giving Carr the credit he deserves. But I think that Antonio Brown, I mean, it's like the third time I want to say that he's retired within a year. He hasn't been showing that he's committed to being a part of the league, even if he's not in the league. Like Andy Dalton said, he basically knew that the Bengals weren't going to play him next year, but he would still want to be a part of the franchise. He still wants to support whoever comes in. So it's just not fair to see Antonio Brown on the sidelines, like acting the way he's acting in his personal life, when in his professional life, he could be such a great asset to a team. So I'm going to say no.
Right. So you're a GM. We're talking mid-season. Top two receivers, one's gone for the season, one is out 6 to 8 weeks with a knee sprain. None of your other receivers can get the job done. You're telling me you're not going to pick up the phone and say, Antonio, I just need you for half a season. If you can behave yourself, half a season, you wouldn't give him a shot?
I mean, he did catch that one touchdown with the Patriots, then he left. So it's like, is one touchdown worth jeopardizing the entire culture I've built with my team? Maybe it's like the woman in me talking, because I feel like once you've built something so good with the team that you have, you don't want to bring something in to jeopardize that. So I mean, shoot, we're gonna lose the next half of the season. I'm sorry.
All right. So, Ryan, give us your opinion. What would you do as a GM? I know you just put out a nice little article on it, so I guess it's a way to push that even further.
Yeah, it was nice of him to retire as I was writing the article. I was like, that's real nice. But, I don't take that retirement seriously. I didn't take the other two really seriously. I think if a team threw him out of contract, he would take it. But Antonio Brown, he is one of the most frustrating players I've ever seen because the talent he has. And I know this is kind of a bold statement, but I truly believe if he played for 10, 12 plus years and he was able to stay relatively healthy and he didn't do all this stupid things, he could contend with Jerry Rice as one of the greatest of all time. Not saying he would get there, but he has that talent. I mean, from 2013 to 2018, he averaged over 1,500 yards a season. Not like hit the high point, he averaged that. That's just insane. But if I was a GM, I would consider it. It would have to be under certain circumstances. Like you said, if your number one and number two went down, and your season was on the line, I would definitely consider picking up the phone, but I would have to sit down and talk with him and lay it out, say, hey, we're not playing with you. We're going to give you a team-friendly contract, and you're going to have to do things our way. And the first time you say or do anything stupid, you're out of here. But Antonio, a lot of people don't think there's a team that would fit with Antonio Brown. For me, I think he needs to be in an environment where it is nothing but work, and there's no outside distraction. When he went to New England, he was only there for a week and a half, but in that week and a half, you didn't hear a peep from him. I mean, other than the allegations of, his girlfriend or fiance or whoever it was, which happened prior to signing with New England, you didn't hear a peep. And he actually had one interview where they asked him, about joining the Patriots, and it was like the most monotone, yeah, I'm just happy for them to give me this opportunity. I'm thankful, blah, blah, blah. And everyone's like, holy hell, like, this was the same man that was just cursing out his GM and head coach a couple days ago. So I think if he's in an environment where he can work, and not have to worry about any outside distractions, he could possibly, no guarantee. And I think there's a very few teams that could do that. One is New England, but that bridge has probably already been burnt since he's been cut. Another Buffalo, I like Sean McDermott. I think he could discipline him. But at the same time, the Bills tried to trade for him, and he said, I'm not playing for Buffalo, so that bridge could have been burnt. And then the last one is Washington. And I know people are going to say, hell no, not Washington. Look what's going on with them. But there's one person that they brung in this offseason that I could think maybe he could help Antonio Brown. That's Ron Rivera. He demands discipline from his players. I mean, he benched Cam Newton one game for not wearing a tie. And that was I think in 2017, 2018. So that, this is before they were really questioning if he was a franchise quarterback or not. He benched him for the either first play or first years. I can't remember. So he, as a GM, yes, I would consider it. It would be under my circumstances, and we'd have to desperately need a receiver.
All right. Keith, you got the GM hat now. Let me know. AB or no AB?
I would have to go with no. Like on Twitter and stuff, a lot of people, including myself, take it lightly about all the crazy stuff that he does and the crazy things that he says. But in all seriousness, coming from someone who also suffers with mental health, but there is something seriously wrong with Antonio Brown. I mean, you hate to take away the thing that someone enjoys the most, but the NFL also has a stigma of rewarding players when they participate in bad behavior. You saw it with Greg Hardy. Cowboys gave him a contract. Cowboys also gave Alden Smith a contract. Cowboys do that often, apparently. But he's just not in a place to where he is ready to be on a 16-game or whatever the schedule is going to be for NFL this year. And as much as you hate to do it, at some point, some GM out there has to take a stand against signing a player just because he's talented and they need him versus doing the right thing and actually trying to help that player get better and improve themselves. I mean, I would absolutely love to have Antonio Brown play for the Broncos, but is it worth the locker room friction or the media coverage that he's going to bring off the field with on the field? Now, if he gets himself together, he is allegation-free, trial-free, arrest-free for a year. Sure, some teams should take a chance on him, but until he proves that he can get his act together and behaved, I would not do it.
Okay. I'm going to put you in the same position I put Ashmere in. Mid-season, top 2 receivers out, one gone for the season, another one out an extended period of time. Nothing but a couple of veterans that are journeymen and a rookie. You're not going to take a flyer on them?
This is why I'm not an NFL GM. I'm stubborn, and I wouldn't. You can't. Like I said, at some point, they got to stop doing that and rewarding people just out of need versus actually trying to help these players. Like I don't know all these GMs personally, but you get the feeling that they don't really care about helping a player. They care about winning games and feeding their bottom line. And that is not conducive to players like Antonio Brown. He needs someone to sit him down and try to mentor him instead of, hey, come in and win us some games and then you can go away after.
All right. Well, the one thing I've learned about the NFL over the years is it's a production-based business, and they'll take certain issues over that. With Antonio Brown, he was a highly productive player for several years. The last few years, he's been out of control and for various reasons, but I think it's more than a mental health issue with him. I think he ran into the hardest thing to deal with, and it's a drug that gets you just as hard as any opiate. It's called success. Some people get hooked on success and they lose it. And that's what I think happened to him. All right. So we're talking about success as we go on to our second quarter question. And we're going to talk about a franchise that hasn't been very successful the past 20 years. All right. And we know about the name change for the team in Washington. The recent situation that's come out now with 15 female employees, former employees, who said they were sexually harassed in some shape or form during their time with the organization. And with Washington's lack of success on the field, should there be a change in Washington, not just on the field, not just on the staff, not just with the individuals involved in the harassment? Should it start at the top with Daniel Snyder? All right. And this time we're going to start it off with Keith. So, Keith, tell us what you think with this one.
I think it absolutely has to. There's the old saying that says the fish rots from the head down. As much as you can try to claim plausible deniability, I can't oversee everything that everyone does in a franchise, whatever excuse you can make of, it still all starts from the top. I'll use an example. If my kid's outside playing and cursing up a storm and ding-dong dishing people's doors, I may not be the one that done that, but I am the one in charge of her. Like, I have to take responsibility of that. And I don't ever recall any time in Daniel Snyder's career when he's ever taken responsibility for anything, whether it be actions by his players, bad coaches, not changing the name of the team until he had his hand forced. He has always been reactive instead of proactive. And that just doesn't fly, especially in this Me Too era, in this era of racial equality and everything that's going on. That's not the man you want running your organization. I don't know him personally. I can't say whether or not he's a good guy or not, but what have we seen by him running that team? A lot of people have come and gone. There's been one constant, Daniel Snyder, and the team hasn't changed. So it's time for him to go and for them to start making some real change.
All right. So with NFL owners, it's a little tough. They're not quick to change when it comes to ownership. It took a lot to get Bill Richardson out after all the stuff that happened in Carolina. You see how hard it is when they bring in franchises. They're very selective about bringing in. So in this case, how hard a case do you think they're going to have to make to get Daniel Snyder out? Because right now, they don't seem like they're willing to move on from Daniel Snyder. It seems like 31 owners are like, listen, Dan, get it together. Because right now you're embarrassing us. It don't seem like they're saying, listen, Dan, we need to get you out of here.
Yeah, it's that situation of the old boys club. The NFL owners are as stubborn as the unwritten rules of baseball. Just doesn't make sense sometimes, but they do it anyway. You would think that this would be a chance for all the other owners to take a stand and try to move forward, but I mean, who knows what they have their meetings about? Maybe he knows something about them that he can leak out, or they just are stubborn and don't want to. Who knows? But they should. They know they should, but like you said, it's going to be hard for them to do it.
All right. Ryan, what say you, sir?
Wow, this was a gut punch because following Washington this offseason, that they did a lot of the right things. They hired Rivera. They got a whole new front office for the football operations, and things were trending upward. They even finally name changed. That came around, and this was a gut punch, and it's embarrassing. It's disgusting. It's really bad that the staff, the people who did this, were on the staff for 10 plus years. So it's been going on for a while, and 15 women came out and said, about the sexual harassment, and that makes you think how many haven't come out or won't come out and say it. So it's only 15 I don't say only, but how many more, and it's kind of, I put the blame on Snyder. He's the big man, he's the boss. And they even said in the article that the women felt they couldn't say anything because there really wasn't even a HR department. They couldn't complain. And they said, like, one of the Larry Michaels, the voice of the Redskins, who, for like 16 plus years, they said, who are they going to fire, him or some intern making 30,000 in the media or a media thing? Then yeah, they're going to fire her, not the voice of the Redskins. So they really felt they didn't have they couldn't complain to anybody, that they were afraid to. And really I came to two conclusions with this. Either one, Snyder knew, and this is the most likely case, is that Snyder knew about it and didn't do a damn thing about it, which is just ridiculous. Or two, he really didn't know about it, and that shows you how bad of an owner he really is. I mean, you're telling me you have a $3.4 billion company and you don't know something this serious is going on in your building? It's just inexcusable. And, he put out his BS apology, which, you knew was coming. And, we're going to make sure it's never going to happen again, yada, yada, yada. It shouldn't have happened in the first place. And Snyder has, in my opinion, failed drastically as an owner in the NFL, especially from the football operations and now from a business point. And yeah, it's time for him to go. But will he go? No. The only way he's going to be not the owner of the Redskins if he's forced out. And by the looks of it, they're not kicking him out yet, but they should. So I don't know what the punishment that the NFL is going to bring to Washington, but Snyder needs to go. But sadly, the only way he's probably is going to go is, I know this is going to sound kind of cruel, but when he kicks the bucket. I honest to God believe that.
That's a bold statement. I mean, honestly, it may not be far from the truth. Ashmere, clean this up for us.
Well, I mean, going back to the 15 women that had come forth for that whole situation, I think that's a little more than enough, just because he was involved in the stories that those women revealed. And I feel like if your owner is allowing himself to be a part of these things, and I read that he was holding passports of cheerleaders, just like that is not the person you want to represent your team and your entire franchise. And within the last 10 years, aside from that, including that, actually, he hasn't done anything very well for the Redskins. I mean, for everyone at the top to just be requesting him to make these changes, or there's no one really pushing him to be a different person, lead the team differently. They've been under 500 the past decade. Like, they're just not doing anything that can prove that Dan Snyder is the person to turn the franchise around. And I think that just because he's hired Ron Rivera, that's like the little glimmer of hope that's something different for them. But I don't think it's enough to, explain like RG3 getting hurt or trading Dominic Nab or anything along those lines that could have helped the team, but he moved too quickly. I also read that he was charging fans to come to training camp. That should be free. There's just these little things that you've learned about the guy that don't make you feel like you want to keep following in this franchise. Like, I mean, to anyone that's a Washington fan and has stayed the past 10 years, kudos to you, because I feel like I would have definitely hopped off a while ago after I've just felt like nothing that the management is doing is changing my team, making it better, making me want to like go to that game. And that's coming from me, who's seen a lot of turnaround,
Wow. I mean, what more can you say about it? And you guys have hit every nail on the head that I could think of. I mean, the lack of success on the field doesn't necessarily mean somebody's going to sell the team. We've seen some bad owners stick around for a long time in the NFL. I mean, right now, and there's still more. I mean, we've seen everything that's going on in New York with the Jets. We're seeing everything that's going on. And for many years, Tampa Bay, before the Glazers took over, was just a dreadful franchise. So there have been plenty of owners that stuck around way longer because of lack of success on the field. But if you chased off Jerry Richardson for the things that happened with him, with the antics that went on behind the scenes, and now you're finding all of this out with Schneider, maybe it's time for you guys to act instead of sit back. I agree with you guys at this point, with everything that's come out, and I'm pretty sure there's probably more that we don't know about. If this much went on, and the fact that you have somebody who comes from a corporate environment that doesn't even have an HR department. I mean, you figure the person that's supposed to protect your employees is HR. And if you don't have that, who's protecting your employees? So you have a billion-dollar corporation in Washington. We're just going to just leave it at that because there is no name right now. And yeah, that's an interesting thing. When that detail came out to me, I said, really? How do you have a billion-dollar corporation with no HR? Who do your employees go to? They can't go to their supervisor if they feel they're being harassed by their supervisor. So right there's a structure problem. And if the guy at the top is okay with that structure, there's a problem. So we're halfway through, and we're making great time. I think the 4 minutes are working, so we're going to stick with that. So let's move on to quarter number 3. All right, so the hype train is in full swing. It's up to about 65 miles an hour, and there's 2 teams at the front of this hype train. Of course, the Tampa Bay Bradyneers, because of Tom Brady coming on board and Gronk. And then you turn around and everybody's falling in love with Kyler Murray and the Cardinals, especially after, they steal a receiver from Houston. So this time we're going to let Ryan start us off. Which one of these 2 teams is going to fail to live up to the hype?
That's a difficult question. I would say the Cardinals don't have – they definitely have hype. But, for Tampa Bay, it's Super Bowl or bust. When they signed Brady, they traded for Gronk coming out of retirement. It's Super Bowl or bust for them. For the Cardinals, I don't see them right now as contenders. I think they need to come out and have 9-10 wins, which I think they can – I think that's very reasonable for them to do, especially with the addition of DeAndre Hopkins, who, that's highway robbery, what they got for him. And then the addition of Isaiah Simmons in the draft, I think that they're very young and they have a lot of potential. I don't think they're there just yet, but to me, 9 or 10 wins for the Cardinals, and that's good to go. So I think they can definitely live up to the hype. And for the Buccaneers, it's really difficult to say, oh, yeah, they're definitely going to win the Super Bowl. You kind of want to see what's going on in the first few weeks to see what chemistry Brady has with the receivers and all that. But anybody will tell you I'm the biggest Brady fan. So I have all the faith in the world in him. Don't make that face. But Tampa Bay, everyone says the offense is probably going to take care of itself. Even if Tom Brady is an average quarterback, the weapons they have, they're going to be probably top 5 or top 10, top 5, even if Brady's an average quarterback. The problem people have is their defense. And on the surface, it looks, they're not that good when you watch them. But when you look at the stats at the end of the year, they really were not bad. And this is the thing, they're a very young defense too. So they're developing. And they also have Todd Bowles as their defensive coordinator, who is a very good coordinator. But when you look at the stats, they had 47 sacks last year, which was 7th in the NFL. The run defense was ridiculous. They only allowed 73.8 rush yards per game and 3.26 yards per carry, both of which were first in the NFL. And then the secondary, they were pretty bad at the beginning of the year, the first 8 to 10 games. But at the end of the season, they really picked it up. And they actually ended up leading the league in passes defended with 96. And the defense as a whole had 28 takeaways. So the defense isn't that bad. And when you look at the Buccaneers as a whole last year, they went 7-9. 6 of their losses were by 1 score. And you pair that with the fact that Jameis Winston had 33 turnovers. You have Tom Brady comes in and does half of that, 16 or 17 turnovers. that you can almost add 3 or 4 more wins there. So I do have faith in Tampa Bay. I'm not saying they're definite Super Bowl champions or anything, but I can see I have enough faith in Brady to lead that team, and I think the defense is young, and if they develop more next year, I think they can be a really, really good team.
All right. Before I switch it over to Ashmere, so you did mention Jameis and the interceptions. If you watched a lot of the games, a lot of interceptions were off of batted balls by his own receivers. So you have that offensive line that struggled to protect Jameis. Receivers that did drop the ball on him last year, and no running game. They really hadn't beefed up their running game this year too much. So you look at those 3 factors, adding in a less mobile quarterback in Brady, although more cerebral and accurate. Are they still going to be a lot better than they were last year?
I do. I know people are going to call me a hypocrite and all that, and I'm not being smart here, but like I said, I'm a Brady fan. I have faith in him. And the offensive line, they were actually ranked 10th in pass protection by Pro Football Focus. And then you add that they drafted Tristan Wirfs in the first round, who I really like. So he'll take over the right tackle position. And you got Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, 2, in my opinion, top 10 receivers. You had Gronk there as Brady's safety blanket, some guy he already has chemistry with. I don't know how much Gronk's going to be involved, but it's at least a familiar face for Brady. And Bruce Arians, he's a smart coach. People, because one thing they say is, it's such downfield and Brady's not much of a downfield passer. Well, you can adjust the scheme a little bit. So, Brady's definitely going to be throwing the ball downfield, but I don't think as much as Jameis Winston was.
All right. Ashmere.
Oh, sorry, I was not muted. So failing to live up to the hype. I have to agree with Ryan in the sense that the Bucs are Super Bowl or bust. They have no middle ground as to what they're expecting, and that's simply for the Tom Brady signage. So I think if they, if Tom Brady is able to figure out how all of his receivers are going to work cohesively with him, Mike Evans was like a rock star last year. He literally saved my fantasy league. He's got good receivers, but it's not going to be that easy. And for Arizona, Kyler Murray was amazing. I think for a rookie season, I think he did very well. And now he's got a great asset in a very strange trade. To this day, I don't understand how Hopkins was given away so easily. And I think the team that will fail to live up to the hype will be the Cardinals, simply because their reach isn't as high as it is for the Bucs. They're just trying to get to 500. They want to play better every year. They want to learn how to build the team around Kyler, somebody who's claimed to be a shorter quarterback, has his own style, things like that. And so I feel because the expectation is lower for the Cardinals, that's the reason why. But I don't think that means they'll be a lesser team. I think it'll still be fun to watch. I think Kyler will be even better than last year. And I'm only speaking on Kyler more because I liked Tampa. It was hard to even like Tampa for me because Marcus Mariota and Jameis Winston got drafted the same year. I'm a Mariota fan, and I don't like Jameis Winston at all. But nobody wants to see somebody go 30 for 30 ever. So I felt bad for the guy. But I really think Cardinals have that lower expectation, and for that reason, it's the answer to your question, but I don't think it's the worst answer.
All right. Well, since you're saying more the Cardinals side, all right, there's been a lot of talk about Kyler Murray taking another step this year. They're saying no sophomore jinx, and they're saying in that division that Cardinal team is going to contend for the playoffs. So there's a lot more hype to that train than just 500. They're talking playoff push in what is considered one of the toughest divisions in football.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It is one of the toughest divisions. We've got Niners, Seattle. Everybody there has to prove themselves from last year, especially since Russell Wilson's just trying to bring Seattle to something just by himself most of the time when he's on the field. I would love to see the Cardinals go to the playoffs. That's just me as a Kyler Murray kind of fan now. I guess you could call me that. But yeah, if the Cardinals, exceed that expectation, it'd be even better. I just don't think the Buccaneers have that middle ground where, it's like the season tickets blew up for the Bucs because everyone's all hyped that Tom Brady's going to lead them to the Super Bowl and change the whole franchise and X, Y, and Z of the Tom Brady legacy that I could care less about. Sorry, but I'm not sorry.
All right. So, Keith, clean this one up.
I think the title Super Bowl bust given to the Buccaneers is inherent in who is not going to live up to the hype. It really is for a lot of people. If they don't win the Super Bowl this season, then the season's not worth it. Never mind if they make it to the playoffs, win the division. It's Super Bowl or nothing at all. They definitely have the talent to be able to make it to the Super Bowl. And as much as I dislike Tom Brady, he's still one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. But there's one thing no one can beat in all sports is Father Time. And Father Time will remain undefeated always. Even though Tom Brady has won a couple Super Bowls in the past 3 to 5 years, you look at points in those games, and he's done very un-Tom Brady-like things in those games. Overthrown receivers, missing wide open players, not reading coverages correctly. There's only so long he can stay at the top of his game. He does have a lot of help with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, but age always wins over help. You have to look at like Roger Federer as an example. Everyone thought that when he won that Australian Open and that Wimbledon that year that he was just going to keep going, and he's hit a wall since then. Tom Brady at some point is going to hit a wall, fall off the cliff, however you want to do it. It may not be this season. At some point it's going to happen, though. Even if he is Tom Brady of old this season, there's still, in my mind, no chance that they win the Super Bowl. There are at least 7 or 8 teams that I will say have a better chance to win the Super Bowl than the Bucs do. And then if you go to the Cardinals, in my opinion, they're probably a little bit overhyped, but their ceiling, I think, is not as high as the Buccaneers, but their floor is a lot lower than what the Buccaneers is. They can go 10-6, and it will be an outstanding season for them. Their division for sure is a lot tougher. That's one thing the Bucs have going for them is that they don't play in as tough a division as the Cardinals do. But Cal Murray played great last year. They robbed the Texans and got DeAndre Hopkins. Kenyon Drake only played 8 games for the Cardinals last year, and he rushed for almost 700 yards. So they have a good team. It may not be this year that it'll be a team that people should fear, but they're definitely set up in the long run. And what really hurts the Bucs is the expectations that have been set for them, and they're just never going to reach those expectations.
All right. Before we move on to the fourth quarter, I got one more thing before we end this segment off. So with Tampa Bay, you're telling me that they're overhyped, but they're going to make a strong push. In their division, though, they weren't the only ones that improved. We know the Saints are still supposedly the class of that division. But Atlanta added some pieces this offseason. Do you think so? Is it a 3-horse race or is it a 2-horse race for the NFC South?
Is Matt Ryan still quarterback?
Yes, he is.
There you go.
So you're not a fan of Matty Ice?
No.
Yes. Yeah, well, I will join you on that train. I've never understood the nickname Matty Ice for a guy that doesn't have that many fourth quarter comebacks, especially important fourth quarter comebacks. That's usually reserved for a guy that you want the ball in his hands in the fourth quarter of games, and I haven't seen that out of him yet. So, but I understand your feelings on that. But all right, before I get preachy on Matt Ryan, let's go into our fourth quarter question. And this one's fun because there's so many interesting takes on this one. And I want to hear what you guys got to say about this one. So, fourth quarter question is basically, we just had, right before the deadline last week, to sign, Derrick Henry got his deal. And you would think that the top rusher from last year, coming off the year he had, leading the team to the playoffs, being a major part of their offense as they made it to this playoff run, was going to get this astronomical deal, and it just didn't happen. So the question is, who won this standoff? Did Henry win because he got his contract? Or did the Titans win because they didn't have to break the bank to keep him? All right. And this time we're going back to Ashmere to start us off.
I think if you look at the top 5 paid running backs, Le'Veon Bell is above Derrick Henry by 2,500,000, whatever. And Le'Veon Bell only rushed about 700 yards last year, and we got Derrick Henry with 1,500. So they could have given him $5 more million. I think he proved his worth last year, especially in playoffs. Like, Derrick Henry was talked about across the board. He carried the Titans with Tannehill, literally carried the Titans for a very long time. I think Derrick Henry is one of the best. I mean, I feel Ezekiel Elliott, I know he's been asking for respect on his name. He deserves it. Last year wasn't the best for him with the Cowboys. I feel like it wasn't very fluid. But I think Derrick Henry had proved game in and game out that he was there, to win the game for the Titans. And he was a great asset to the offense. He deserved to get paid. But the highest paid is Elliott with 90 million, and then you've got Derrick Henry with 50. So they had some cushion to give that guy some more money, and I think he's earned it because, when you're paid right, you work hard. And if you're not paid right, you work a little less hard because somebody else could pay you better and you could show them that you're a great offensive asset to that team, and Derrick Henry is that person. So I think they were a little cheap on him. I think he could have gotten like 5-6 more million, but I think that also just comes with the humbleness that he has. He's such a cool player. He's all about that culture vibe that he's created with this team. You can tell that they all are like a family. And so I feel like that might be more important to him, and the way that he presents himself, across the media and everything. He likes to keep himself just like a great representation of himself. So I feel like because he's humble, you got to give him some slack, but he should have been a little greedy and asked for some more money.
All right. So when you look at the deal, he could have gotten a lot more money. I agree with you on that. I think he could have gotten a lot more. The question about it is, though, I mean, you do all this to get to the point where you want to get the best leverage, the best deal. Did he really win anything by taking this deal? I mean, to me, that's the biggest question of it all. I mean, he got his deal. He got a lot more money than he would have gotten had he played on a tag. Technically, the Titans can still get out of it at some point without a lot of baggage. So I'm leaning towards Titans one, but I want to know I want a clear one on the answer on this one. Who do you believe won, him or the Titans?
No, I believe the Titans won as well, because was last year their best year? It could have been. Are they going to be able to repeat the miracle numbers that they put through last year? Stomp on the Ravens as they did? We don't know. That could have just been one amazing year for the Titans, but because that was a great year, they're stealing him essentially.
All right. Keith, you're up.
If you're gonna force us to pick a winner here,
well, we gotta have a winner. That's the whole point of it. Who won?
I have to say,
no pushes. We want a winner.
I have to say, Derrick Henry won this deal. I don't think, based on his first 4 years in the league, that he deserves to be paid as a top running back. You can make a solid argument he was a top running back in the NFL last season. wouldn't be correct because that's still Christian McCaffrey, who also got paid and got paid more than Derrick Henry got paid. And you can see from his rookie year to last season, he's had continual improvement. He went from 490 rushing to 744 to 1059 to 1540. So at this point, I think it's safe to say he is a top 5 running back in the NFL, and he is getting paid like a top 5 running back in the NFL. And honestly, the Titans didn't have to pay him as a top 5 running back because he hasn't been a top 5 running back every season that he's been in Tennessee. I think they took a chance on him, giving him that large of a contract, because if you look at total value of contract, he's top 5. If you look at average yearly, he's top 5. The 2-3 players that are above him are Christian McCaffrey, Ezekiel Elliott, and Le'Veon Bell. You can't make an argument he is better than Le'Veon Bell if you're basing it only on last season. Is he better? Would I take him over Ezekiel Elliott or Christian McCaffrey? Absolutely not. So I don't think he deserves to be paid Christian McCaffrey, Ezekiel Elliott money. But for what he did for that team last season, for his continual improvement, he got a good contract. He didn't get the best running back contract, but he doesn't deserve the best running back contract. They could have made him sweat it out for another year and prove that he can rush for $1,500 or 1,500 yards again next season. They didn't. They put their faith in him. They gave him a nice contract, and I think that's what he deserves for the time being.
All right. Ryan, close us out, and then we're going to come back because I'm going to add one more twist, and I'm going to give you all one chance to finish. But, Ryan, speak your piece.
All right, so Derrick Henry won this, and it was a big old L for Tennessee because, spoiler alert, running backs don't matter. And I know people that's really controversial, but – and I used to be on the other side. I'm like, how can you take a whole position, especially one that touches the ball 15, 20-plus times a game, how can you say they don't matter? Well, there's plenty of evidence. You go Pro Football Focus, other things. They show all the time the data. They don't really matter. It is a passing league. It is a quarterback league. And you can look at all the data you want. You don't even have to look at the data. Look at the past Super Bowl champions. You got Damian Williams on the Chiefs. He elite? No. Sony Michel on the New England? No. I mean, the last, I would say, elite running back that we've seen win a Super Bowl was probably Super Bowl 48 with the Seahawks, and they had the Legion of Boom, one of the greatest defenses of all times. So running backs, they're very much replaceable. How many times have we seen they after their rookie deal, they get a big deal, Le'Veon Bell, Todd Gurley, and they just don't live up to it. I mean, Zeke had his worst year in the NFL after getting paid. So in my opinion, running backs are very replaceable. I would never consider giving a running back $10+ million a year. I'd rather invest that in other places. When you look at guys like Saquon Barkley, who many say is the best running back in the league, okay, but yet the Giants still had one of the worst offenses in the past 2 seasons. Christian McCaffrey had arguably one of the best seasons a running back could have last season, and the Panthers still had one of the worst offenses. So, you can look at the statistics and you can just look at it from, your eyes and see that running backs are very replaceable. It's not smart to give them big money. And when you're looking at Henry alone, everyone wants to talk about how well he did, and I'm not knocking that. And when I say running backs don't matter, I'm not knocking the players. Henry is a fantastic running back, but it's just the position that they play that I'm not convinced you should pay. And you got Tannehill came in last year, and that is when Henry started playing well. You can look at when Mariota was in, Henry was just getting average numbers, 60, 70-yard games, maybe a 90-yard game. But when Tannehill came in, and he played very well, that's what people, they don't realize. I think because he came in, the last 8 or 10 games, in that stretch from week, whatever it was, 7 to 17, he was the highest graded quarterback by Pro Football Focus, higher than Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. And as soon as they inserted the Tannehill in the starting lineup, Henry started having a lot of success. And when you look at the playoffs, yeah, he was great then too. But the Tennessee's defense doesn't get the credit it deserves. I mean, you're talking they shut down New England's offense, which wasn't that hard. They weren't that great. But then they stopped Baltimore's offense, which I didn't think anybody was going to be able to do. When I was watching Baltimore at the end of the season, I'm just sitting there there's no way in hell a team's going to stop them. But sure enough, the Titans defense did. And without Tannehill, without the Titans' offensive line, and without that defense, Derrick Henry would not have had anywhere close to the numbers that he put up. And like I said, that's not a knock on Henry. It's more on the position that he plays, and it's so reliant on other things.
All right. And it's funny because my follow-up was going to have the analytics talk about running back. So it's a good thing that you brought that up. All right. Speaking of that, all right, the talk is for those that are not big on analytics, and as a scout, I have to be. Running backs are an expendable position. You don't overpay them. You can find a cheaper one in the draft that will continue to give you the same success as the highest paid running backs do. I am not a firm believer of that because we've seen it fail and seen it work. So I think that's a case-by-case basis. But in a situation like this where you've paid the man so much money, and realistically, out of the 4 years he's had 2,000-yard seasons, basically those 2,000-yard seasons came when he became the bell cow runner, as we know DeMarco Murray was there when he was drafted. So let me give you all a chance. Once again, same order we're going to follow up in. So we're going to start with Ashmere. All right. Based on the numbers, was it smart by the Titans to extend them the way that they did? Ashmere, you're up first.
I think based off of the offense the Titans played last year, he was an essential player for them. The way that they started to build the offense around him to make him more successful. So I kind of forgot what your question was, but I think I think the Titans, I still think they stole him.
Okay. Keith.
Like you said, I think you have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. I mostly agree. Well, I wouldn't say I agree. The running back is not the most important position on the team. But when you have teams like Tennessee who depend on their defense and not so much on their quarterback, you need a running back like Derrick Henry on your team. And there's not very many Derrick Henrys in the NFL that you can go out and find. And I guess you could say it's a win for them that they're able to keep him, but it's a win for him more in the sense of what he got paid, because they didn't have to pay him what they paid him right now. I would have made him wait another year. Prove to me that you can rush for 1,500 yards again. So like you said, he's only rushed for 1,000 yards twice, and the first time he did it by the skin of his teeth. So it's a win for him to be able to get the contract that he did. Now he's got to go out and prove it.
All right, Ryan.
Can you repeat the question?
Okay, so basically, based on the data we talked about, where based by analytic standards, running backs are replaceable. Okay, and since we brought analytics into it, I had to use the analytic standards. All right. Was it smart for Tennessee to sign him to this deal, if that's the case?
I mean, in reality, it wasn't a horrible deal because you did see others who's gotten higher deals, Le'Veon Bell, Christian McCaffrey, Zeke. So it wasn't awful, but you also got to understand Henry's one-dimensional. You got Christian McCaffrey can catch the ball. Le'Veon Bell can catch the ball. Zeke can catch the ball. Henry's not really that. So maybe that played a factor in why he got less than them. But like I said, I think they would have been smart putting him on the franchise tag, seeing him one more year. But like I said, I'm just a firm believer in not giving them a big second contract after their rookie year. There's just been too many cases where they give them a big deal and it just doesn't work out. And we've also seen running backs who, Le'Veon Bell with Pittsburgh, okay, when he held out and everyone, oh no, now the Pittsburgh's offense is going to be different. James Conner came in and did his thing. And there was almost no drop-off from Le'Veon Bell. So, and you look and say, well, they also had Antonio Brown and Juju. Well, yeah, that's why you would invest more money instead on running backs and more receivers, because it is a passing league. It's not a running league anymore. So Tennessee, I would say I would have franchise tagged him. Well, I wouldn't have paid him. That would have been my honest opinion, but I think it would have been smarter to franchise tag him than give him a long-term deal.
All right. Keith.
Yep.
So, all right. So we talked about it, and I'm looking at the numbers. Man, this is where we're supposed to have a winner. And the only thing I can say right now is I'm going to make sure Ashmere stays muted because we have a tie. So we're going into overtime. So Ashmere, unfortunately, didn't factor into the tie. So she's staying muted right now. All right. So it's between Keith and Ryan. All right. So I'm going to throw you guys a question. All right. You're going to get 2 minutes each. All right. Whoever gets the most points for this round is going to get our FaceTime at the end. It's going to go to the at the final whistle, get the winner circle. So, all right. So we're going to start. We're going to start it off with Ryan. So if you've paid attention to social media, there's been a challenge thrown out. All right, and the old scout in me actually knows certain parts of this answer, but I'm going to leave it to you guys to tell me what you think. All right. There's a challenge thrown out by Pat Mahomes recently to Josh Allen to see who has the stronger arm. So, in your opinion, you guys tell me, who do you think has the stronger arm? Starting with you, Ryan.
Ooh, that's a tough one. Much like I don't think running backs don't really matter. I also think arm strength is one of the most overrated aspects in a quarterback. Not that I don't think it's important, but arm strength is one of the most overrated things. And when you talk arm strength, are you also talking accuracy with deep ball? Because in that case, Josh Allen wouldn't even be close to Pat Mahomes. But I would say Pat Mahomes probably has the bigger arm, and I'm going to pair that with because he has the accuracy with it. Because Josh Allen kind of just throws it and I don't think he really cares where it ends up. He just throws it deep. So I'm going to say Patrick Mahomes with the deep ball, just because he has the accuracy with it.
All right, Keith.
I'm going to take this question very literal and say, if you're going on just arm strength, not arm strength and accuracy or arm strength and arm talent, I would say Josh Allen has the stronger arm. Doesn't mean he's more accurate. Pat Mahomes is hands down more accurate than Josh Allen is. But if you were to stand him at the goal line and see if you can make it to the other goal line, the closest, I think Josh Allen would get him by a hair.
Well, I'll tell you what. I remember scouting both of these guys and watching both of these guys throw and going by their radar guns at the combine. Josh Allen threw 60 miles an hour. Mahomes threw 56. So by velocity, it would be Allen. But when you talk about all the things that Mahomes does with the accuracy, the throws that he makes, but once again, I saw Josh Allen throw it 70 yards on a rope. That's something very hard to do. Rope throws don't go 70. He throws 70 yards on a rope. They may not hit the receiver in his numbers, but he'll throw it 70 yards. So for the win with the comeback, Keith steals the show. So we have a winner after overtime. So Keith, you have now 3 minutes to claim your FaceTime. So right. Yours, take the floor.
So I'm just going to keep it short and sweet. So the NBA should be coming back in 7 or 8 days now. If there's any league of the major professional sports leagues, whether it be MLS, NBA, NFL, NHL, I think the NBA has by far given the best model of how to handle this tough time in sports with COVID-19. It's not perfect by any chance. I mean, they are testing players like crazy. Players are still testing positive. They're having a hard time following the rules as shown by the snitch hotline, which I think is weird. But if there's any chance we have of finishing a season this year, I think it is with the NBA. And I think all the credit has to be given to Adam Silver on that one. Since he's come into the league as the commissioner, They got Donald Sterling out of there. They are listening to the players, trying to do what's best by them. They're even putting Black Lives Matter on the court, regardless of what all the outside noise says. Adam Silver is doing a great job running that league, and I think that's evident with how they're running this bubble down in Florida. If it were up to me, I would have no sports this year, but it's not up to me. If they can make it work, looks like they are going to make it work. Bravo to them, and everyone else needs to follow in their lead.